Hi everyone, Ashley here, and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. For today's card, I'm going to be building this medieval scene on a slimline design. And before I get started, I just wanted to mention that the design for this background was largely taken from another card maker that I found on YouTube. Her name is @kenshi.school, and I'm going to link her video in the description below so you can check it out. So for this card, I'm going to be using supplies from the My Monthly Hero August 2019 card kit. I've already gotten a lot of use out of this kit, and if you want to check out another video using these same supplies, just click the link up in the top right of the video right now. I really wanted it to look like there's a fair going on, with the king and queen sitting at the top and all of the different activities happening below them. So I'm going to be using a lot of the stamps from this set, the king and the queen sitting on their thrones, the woman shooting an arrow, the knight on a horse, and the jester, along with the tent and a few others. So the first step is to stamp them all out onto Neenah Solar White cardstock. I like using this cardstock because it's super bright white and it's really good for Copic coloring, and the inks just blend beautifully on it. So I'm just going to speed up this process where I'm laying all the stamps out onto the paper, sort of like Tetris, trying to fit them all in and make the most use out of the paper. Once I get them all lined up on the paper, I'm going to pick them all up with the Mini Misty stamping tool. This tool is amazing for stamping images because you can stamp them as many times as you want and get a nice, clean, crisp image by the end. So if you don't stamp them perfectly on the first time, don't worry because you can always stamp them again and again until you get it right. I'm using some Gina Amalgam black ink here because this is a nice Copic-friendly ink. I'm going to speed up the coloring process now. If you want to skip the coloring process, feel free to do so and just jump ahead in the video. I'm using Copic markers here to color in all of these images. I tend to get into phases with my coloring, where I'll get into one medium for a little while, like Copic's, and then all of a sudden I'll decide that I really want to use pencil crayons or watercolor markers, and I'll really focus on those for a while. So I'm definitely in my Copic phase right now, and I do think that out of all the coloring mediums, these are probably my overall favorite. I just love how easy they are to blend together. You don't have to worry about water getting pilled up on your paper, and you don't have to worry about blending out pencil marks like you would with pencil crayons. I believe that any alcohol marker pretty much acts the same. I know that there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that showcase the different types and the advantages and disadvantages of each. I've only ever really tried Copic markers and I love them. I use mainly these Copic Chow markers. These are just the smaller type. You can tell because they're smaller and rounder, whereas different variants like the Copic Sketch are sort of bigger and more rectangular shaped. I believe that they are all the same type of ink. I think the Copic Chows have maybe fewer colors to choose from, but honestly, I've never felt like I don't have enough colors, and I still don't think I've even purchased all the ones that are available. The Chows are actually at a lower price point, which just makes them nicer for me because I can afford to buy more, get more colors for the same price, and since it's all the same ink, it's really the same thing. If your markers ever do run dry, there are refills that you can purchase. But because these marker types, the Chows, are on the cheaper side, I tend to be lazy and just buy a whole new marker when one dries out, which to be honest doesn't happen very often and I use them quite a lot. They last for a long time. So for the rest of this coloring process, I'm just going to put on some music, and again, if you don't want to watch this part, feel free to jump ahead in the video and we'll pick up the card making process when the coloring is done. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy, and I'll talk to you soon. so now all of the images are colored, and I'm going ahead and placing the coordinating dies around them and securing them into place with this purple tape, which is just a nice light tack tape that doesn't stick to your paper too much, but also sticks it enough to keep everything in place. I'm just running the images through my Big Shot machine, which is just a plain old Big Shot, nothing fancy. And at the end here, we'll see how nicely all these dies were able to cut out these images. So here's the knight, nicely cut out. And I just love how intricate of a cut you can get with these coordinating dies. It's just so much nicer than I could ever do by hand. Here's the king sitting on his throne, along with his banner and that little target there. So all of the images have been cut out like this, and I'm just going to take them out and put them off to the side until we're ready to use them. Next, I'm going to be working on the card background. And again, I took the idea for this background from @kenshi.school. She used it on a card and I just thought it was so cute. So I knew I wanted to try it myself. And I think this is one of the really nice things about card making and this community in general, is that there's just so much inspiration. As soon as you start looking at what other people are doing, it just gives you all these ideas for what you could do and how you could apply the same ideas to your supplies, which I think is really fun. So this design is meant to mimic sort of a lawn with a pathway going through it, and then all of the fairground elements are going to be placed on top. For the grass, I'm just using some twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink and applying that with a foam applicator here. I'm just going to speed up the rest of the ink blending process. I'm overlaying the twisted citron color with Lucky Clover, which is this beautiful bright green. I'm not working too hard to blend the colors here. These Distress Oxide inks actually blend so nicely without any effort, but I also thought that a slightly unblended look was kind of nice because it looked like the grass was sort of unkempt. Next, I'm just going in with an eraser and erasing those pencil lines where I had drawn in the rough pathway. Something I've noticed is that when you ink over pencil lines like this, the ink tends to cover them and it's hard to erase them because the pencil is now underneath the ink. So I did struggle a little bit and there was definitely some pencil lines still left at the end, but I figured, you know what, I'll put the stamped images over it and not worry too much about it. Next, I'm going in with a mixture of antique linen and scattered straw distress ink colors to make this path, and sort of just dabbing them onto each other and not really worrying again about blending too much because I wanted them to look a little bit rough, like a pathway that's being walked on. So there you have it. There is the background with the grass and the pathway. And off camera, I'm just going to go ahead and add a few little pebbles and pieces of grass with a black Copic marker, just to add a little bit of extra detail. Next, I'm adding a sky to the card base, and I wanted this to line up with the card front, which I had cut to be slightly smaller than the card base. So I just used the card front there as a bit of a guideline for where I need to tape off the card base to blend in my sky. I'm using again some purple tape here to make these guidelines because this gives a nice crisp look without actually sticking too much to your paper. For the sky, I'm using tumbled glass and broken china Distress Oxide inks. I'm just blending them together with the lighter color on top, that's the tumbled glass. And then I'll come in with the broken china on the bottom so that the darker color is coming from the bottom, blending into the light at the top. So I've just laid the tumbled glass onto the paper, and now I'm coming in with the broken china. I'm really struggling to open the Distress Oxide lid here, but I finally get it open, and here we go. So I'm laying the broken china onto the tumbled glass, and again, not taking too much care to really blend it out, because these oxide inks just blend themselves, really. You don't have to do very much work. That's something that I really love about them and why I keep going back to them. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between the colors, broken china, then tumbled glass, to get a nice blend. And here we go. I think it looks pretty nicely done, so I leave it there. And I'm just checking to make sure I've gone low enough so that the card front will cover it, which I think I have. Next, I wanted to add a bit of a sunlight effect. A lot of people have that stencil which looks like a sunburst, but I don't. I've been able to get a very similar effect manually just using tape, so I've never really felt the need to buy it. And this is how I do it. So I lay two pieces of purple tape beside each other in that triangular shape to get the first ray. I ink that yellow, I'm using squeezed lemonade Distress Oxide, over the space to make the ray shape. I then use another piece of purple tape, actually the same one that I had used from before, and decide how big I want the blue space to be in between the rays, and I put the purple tape down just temporarily, long enough to make a little pencil mark. And that mark will be covered by the card front, so you don't have to worry about it being seen. I then lay the purple tape over the space where I want it to be blue, and then opening up the space that I want to be yellow, where I can make my ink. So I'm coming back in with my squeezed lemonade and blending that out to make the ray. When you pull it off, you can see that you've now got the ray with a nice space of blue in between. So I'm just going to show that again here so you can get the idea. I'm putting the purple tape where I want the space to be, and then coming back and laying it over the space so that I can make the shape for the next ray. I'll come back in with the yellow squeezed lemonade Distress Oxide ink and blend it out. So that way you can get alternating sky with yellow rays, and then blue sky, and then yellow rays. So I'll just do this over and over until I've filled up that whole space. In the corner, I'm just going to dab a little circle of yellow. This is just using that foam dabber, which is already a circle shape, super convenient. And this kind of makes it look like the sun. So then it looks like you've got the sun with the rays. And the most satisfying part, of course, is pulling off that purple tape to see the effect beneath. So there I have my blended sky on the card base. I've already gone ahead and taped the card front onto the card base using a piece of fun foam, and this just gives it a nice even layer of dimension. So the next step is to then adhere all of my little elements onto the card to develop my fair scene. I'm doing this with a mix of foam squares and liquid adhesive, so some elements are popped up and some elements are flat on the card base. I like using this combination of adhesives because I feel like it gives the scene a little bit of variety, with some elements popped up and some elements not. I'm just arranging all of the elements onto the card front here so I can sort of get an idea of how they're going to be laid out, and then I'm going ahead and adhering them all down. I tried to lay it out so that each section of the path has a bit of an activity going on. So at the top you've got that jester, then midway down you've got the knight on his horse. The next section has the knight talking to the princess, and then finally at the bottom you've got that woman practicing her archery, and she's got one in the bullseye and then she missed a couple too. So with that, all of the elements are placed onto the card, and for a final touch I'm just coming back in with a light gray Copic marker and adding a little shadow below each stamped image, just to give it a little extra touch of realism. As the final touch, I'm adding the sentiment here, which I stamped onto some of the parchment paper that came in the kit, using a couple of the stamps that came in the kit as well. It's a small banner and the sentiment Royal Greetings, which I thought was perfect for this royal fair scene. I'm using some Ranger Multi-Medium Matte to glue this banner onto the card front, and I've already decided where I want to put it, into that little space near the bottom, and it just fits there absolutely perfectly. It looks like it's coming off the edge of the card, which I really like. So I'm using my tweezers here to just get that in place and then glue it down onto the card. So that's it. That's the card for today. Thanks again to @kenshi.school for her great inspiration, and I had a lot of fun making this card. I think that the stamps in this set really lend themselves to this fun scene with all these different elements looking like a fair. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I upload new videos every week, and by subscribing you'll be notified when I upload a new one. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye!